Steelers, they are next on our list here. Their draft was headlined, and quite possibly the easiest way to start off any of these divisions. They drafted Kenny Pickett in the first round with the 20th overall selection. They did not have to trade up. They did not have to trade back in. They stayed right where they were at 20 to select Kenny Pickett, followed up by one of my favorite wide receiver prospects in George Pickens. And then Aaron, one of your, I don't know if I want to say favorite prospects, but you talked about DeMarvin Leal pretty much all night on that second night and kind of wondered where he would go. He landed in Pittsburgh in round 3 with pick 84. Got to start, though, with Kenny Pickett, guys. This was the pick that we all thought Malik Willis. Instead, they go the hometown boy and Kenny Baby Hands Pickett. Aaron, what's going on here?
I didn't love the pick. I didn't love the pick. We're talking about a guy with baby hands. I mean, and playing the quarterback position. No, listen, I don't want to knock Kenny Pickett. He was the first quarterback taken off the board and widely a consensus favorite to be one of the first taken off the board across the NFL. So I'm not bashing the fact that they took him. I just think they already have a player just like him in Mitchell Trubisky on their roster. And I think that's the biggest thing here is it an upgrade from a Mitchell Trubisky who's only been in the league a few years, still young enough. He's only, I think, a year older than Kenny Pickett. Is it a huge upgrade to take him that high? Maybe the upside is not there for a Kenny Pickett. I think that's why I'm a little bit reluctant to call him a great pick. I would have liked to see them take Malik Willis, who I think the upside is far much higher than it is with Kenny Pickett. So this to me comes down to sitting at pick 20. I think you swing for the fences there. I don't think you had an immediate need when you got Trubisky there to be able to handle the load until you get a young player that's ready. I think you go Malik Willis there, shoot for the upside, and you hope it pans out. I don't think any of these quarterbacks really jump off on tape saying they're going to be elite, and I don't think Kenny Pickett was worthy of a top 20 pick. It's, again, this comes down to hand size, turnovers. It's literally Mitchell Trubisky. He's he can move around, he can make plays, but he has been prone to turnovers. I believe it's 27 fumbles, and that could be arguably about his baby hands or small hands, not being able to hold onto the football. Again, pick 20. I would have liked to see a player with much more upside than what I think Kenny Pickett has.
Yeah, it really feels like they just settled, I talked about this. I mean, we're talking about a guy who took 5 years in the ACC to really develop. It wasn't until his last year that he broke out. And honestly, if he wasn't a Heisman finalist, I'm not sure that we really are talking about him as a top 20 pick. I agree. I think Malik Willis had much more upside. And let me point something else out. I think that Kenny Pickett feels like he was lucky to get drafted. Vinny, if you'll pull that graphic of the top 3 back up real quick for me, I want you to take a look at this real quick. So when you look at these players, George Pickens, DeMarvin Leal, don't they just look like they embody what Pittsburgh is all about? And then Kenny Pickett looks like I didn't think that they would call my name. Kenny Pickett looks like he's so happy that he was drafted because there was a good chance that it was a bunch of smoke screen about where he would go. And when I don't see the allure to Kenny Pickett. I feel like you haven't set your offense forward. I think this was a very lateral move on the part of the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Now let's. I know it's hindsight's 2020, and no one would have predicted that the quarterbacks would fall that far. I mean, we saw Malik Willis. He was the fourth round pick. Yep. He was a third round pick. Malik Willis,
third QB taken off the board.
We saw those guys just drop. And do you think that if Kenny Pickett doesn't go there at 20, he'd be in the 4th round or 3rd round?
Perhaps. There's a chance. I don't believe many teams thought very highly of these quarterbacks. And I think it showed. Not only did teams pass them up on the 1st round, they passed on them in the 2nd round. They were trading up and were like, oh, this is the spot. And they passed on them again. I think Pittsburgh, I will say this. I do think Pittsburgh had a little bit of a luxury that most teams probably don't have that are looking for a quarterback. They didn't have many other needs, like huge holes to fill, right? They addressed the line in free agency. They've always been really good about drafting wide receivers late and stuff like that. I don't think you can look at Pittsburgh and say, where's that one glaring hole outside of quarterback, right? So I think they were in a position to say, we could do that. We could reach for a guy in the first round with what we believe is some upside, and it'll be okay. Whereas these other teams maybe didn't have that same privilege, like an Atlanta Falcons with, tons of needs, or a Seattle with some other needs. Yeah, linebackers. I think that may have gone into the thought process, but again, could Kenny Pickett have fallen further? Sure. It wouldn't have surprised me.
You don't think the Steelers could have considered offensive line as a glaring need? It feels like, well, looking at their draft, that the rest of the world is the only one that sees issues with their offensive line.
They addressed their offensive line in the offseason. They've done a really good job in the offseason of addressing their offensive line. The fact of the matter is they get the players back they had last year who were very young and inexperienced, who now have a year of experience. We're in the playoffs. You add a Mason Cole. You add a why can't I think of the guard's name from James Daniels. Like, they've addressed their offensive line. They've done the same thing that Cincinnati did, and Cincinnati's offensive line was arguably worse than the Steelers last year. So I think they've already addressed that. And then you look at pick 20, who was already gone? Trevor Penning was gone. Zion Johnson was gone. Obviously, Charles Cross was gone. Yeah, all of those top guys were gone. So they were in a spot there. What do you either trade back, which means you're not getting the quarterback anyways, or you say, you know what, we have a luxury with this pick. Let's go out and take our quarterback now, and hopefully we get that fifth-year option. It works out for us. I think that may have played into it. They were in a kind of a good spot sitting at 20. But you noticed, Kenny Pickett was their guy. They didn't trade up for him. Knowing that other teams could trade up ahead of them and get a quarterback, they didn't move up thinking they had to go get him. So I think they sat there. He fell to them. They said, we got a luxury here. There's no lineman. There's nobody else we really want. Let's take Kenny Pickett.
What about and this will be the last thing on the Kenny Pickett talk, and it's the biggest thing for them. What do you say, Aaron? You're you X's and O's guy, big knowing the game, knowing the ins and outs of it. What do you think about Kenny Pickett and the fit of the Pittsburgh Steelers and what Mike Tomlin likes to do? Because I've been hearing a lot about he actually fits better with Mike Tomlin than what Malik Willis did.
Yeah, I think he's more of a natural quarterback than Malik Willis is right now, right? He's more ready to come in and do it now. He can throw the ball in all different levels, short, long, short, intermediate, and deep. I think this shows me that the Pittsburgh Steelers want to be a run-first football team with play action and go back to how it was with Big Ben early in his career. Because Kenny Pickett, Big Ben was mobile, as people might not think. Before he became ancient, Big Ben actually could move in the pocket. He didn't run a lot, but he could move in the pocket, create extra time, and then his big frame allowed him to, shrug off defenders. I think Kenny Pickett can do some of that stuff. It's the same reason why they signed Mitchell Trubisky, though, because he can do some of that stuff, extend plays, run play action. So I think the fit is there. He's obviously played at Pitt, so he's familiar with the area. They've seen a lot of him. I think he'll be fine as far as NFL quarterback. I'm not saying he's going to be a bust, but when we talk about the NFL in today, 2022, we see game managers who can get you to the Super Bowl, maybe can compete. We see elite. And that's what I think when you're drafting a quarterback nowadays, that's what you're looking for is elite. So if Kenny Pickett is not going to be that elite guy, it means everything around him has to be perfect. He has to have a good running game, good line, good defense. All that has to be working, no injuries. And that's harder to do because he's not going to be able to make up for those deficiencies when those things start to come about. So I think that's the biggest question mark with the Kenny Pickett and that pick at 20.
They did help him with some of the receivers and the pass catches that they went and got him. So I'll give him that. Like, if they were like iffy on him, they were like, if we're going to grab him at 20, we then have the due diligence to get everything we can to put around him. And I think they did a good job of that.
Yeah,
for sure.
What now looking at the rest of their draft here, they got the quarterback, they go wide receiver, they go D-line, wide receiver, Connor Hayward, a linebacker, and another quarterback. To me, I thought that they needed to go a defensive back at some point in this draft. I felt like they needed more in the secondary. They obviously went out and signed Levi Wallace. They got Cam Sutton there. And then that, to me, I guess maybe they're high on Arthur Mallett or James Pierre. I thought that they needed to go exactly. I thought they needed to go out and get another cornerback. And we talk about the Kenny Pickett and picking him at 20. And obviously Andrew Booth has his concerns and Kyler Gordon has his concerns, but that really is, to me, what kind of jumps out. Maybe go cornerback there at 20. I digress. Looking at the rest of their draft and looking at the GPAs that we dished out for the Steelers, AJ, you and I both went 3.25. When you look over their draft class, what pick really embodies this 3.25 grade that you gave the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Interestingly enough, for me, it's Calvin Austin. And it's because they had already went and got George Pickens. So where I look at a team like my Atlanta Falcons that only got a big body in Drake London and then didn't do anything really to complement them, I like the idea that they went and got George Pickens, a big body, can go get it, high point guy, and then a blazing speedster like Calvin Austin, who can be a gadget guy, who can be a slot guy, who can be a quick slant, turn up the field, and burn everybody out. So I really like this. I think this was a great way to take over what the loss with Juju, to complement Chase Claypool, to complement Deontay Johnson, and then their last pick of George Pickens. So again, they did a really good job of, if Kenny Pickett was a guy they were going to pick, let's do everything we can to make sure he's got weapons around him. You look at that you add those guys I just mentioned, then the tight end of Pat Freiermuth and the running back game of Najee Harris. This can be a loaded offense if they get everything together, whether it's Mitch Trubisky or Kenny Pickett at the helm. Yeah.
Vinny, I don't know. Vinny froze, but I do want to talk. I don't know if Vinny's over there freezing. I do want to talk about Calvin Austin also. I think what George Pickens and Calvin Austin told me is that Chase Claypool won't be a Pittsburgh Steeler for very much longer.
No
way. That's what it really showed me. He's a free agent after next year, I believe. That'll be year 4. George Pickens, the talent we've talked about. This guy, if he can keep his head on straight, I think George Pickens is that next outside guy alongside Deontay Johnson, and Calvin Austin fits right in that slot. We've seen them do this before. They just let go of a guy who had very similar skill set to Calvin Austin, but he was probably a downgraded version in a Ray McLeod, who was quick, shifty. He didn't have the blazing speed that a Calvin Austin has, but I think with George Pickens on the outside making big plays, you have a technician and a route runner in Deontay Johnson. They're going to have a potent offense. And whichever quarterback gets the opportunity to start, they might not ever come out. I'm going to say that right now, including Mitchell Trubisky. If he gets the opportunity and they don't start Kenny Pickett day 1, remember, even at pick 20, you are not guaranteed that quarterback has to play. Look at Jordan Love. He's been on the bench for, I know it's Aaron Rodgers, but let Mitch Trubisky go out and somehow win this AFC North, go win a playoff game. You are not going to put in Kenny Pickett just because you drafted him at pick 20.
I think too, with that, like, what also plays into that is you have Mike Tomlin as your head coach. Like, he's not some guy who's going to be easily pushed over to say, okay, we gotta start our first round pick eventually. Like, he's not going to be that type of coach that's going to get pushed over to make that decision. So we may never see Kenny Pickett play.
As a Steeler,
that may be a stretch, but yeah,
preseason. You'll see him in preseason. The first snap, he'll fumble the ball because of his baby hands.
Jesus Christ. And, they're very tiny. Actually, we have photo evidence right here, right there. Exhibit A, those baby hands.